Yo, what up, guys? Welcome back and Happy New Year. If y'all got resolutions or goals that you're trying to hit this year, really get it off in the beginning because people are going to be in a positive mindset and the whole energy is going to be shifted in like a positive way. So I say take advantage of that because you might not have opportunities that you would otherwise. So just really get after it at the start and hit your goals real early this year. With that, I'm going to get on to the topic of the video today, which is going to be going over blood work on a budget, basically. So I had people ask a couple questions from my last video, and I just posted my blood work. And basically, if you go online or whatever, everybody's going to say, oh yeah, get your blood work done, get everything done, the whole nine, pre, mid, and post. I mean, that's not really always feasible. We might be on a budget, shit might happen. I would rather have somebody get the half bloods or a couple bloods rather than just being like, oh man, that's too expensive, I'm not gonna get anything. So that's why I wanna post this and give you a strategy of how you can kind of stagger your blood work to be like optimal and save a lot of money at the same time. Obviously, getting the whole thing is gonna be better. So if you can afford that, do that every time, but we're gonna go over how to save you a little bit of money and what's the most important health-wise. So just to start off, this is going to be for beginners to intermediates. If you're like advanced, you've done like 3 or maybe 4 more cycles, you should have an idea of like exactly what's wrong and everything by then, like what's your weaknesses for health and all that. So if you're like more advanced, I would say no, but this is going to be working on beginners and intermediates. So your very first cycle, very crucial that you get your mid-cycle blood work and you get your testosterone and your estradiol levels. Other times it's not going to be as important, but your first cycle it's going to be crucial for sure. So testosterone, you're going to want to see how your body metabolizes it and how your body metabolizes estrogen. So basically, keep in mind that cypionate and enanthate esters, they take 3 to 4 weeks to stabilize. And then you also have to keep in mind that there's going to be a lag time between when your actual estrogen comes up in the range. So usually about a 3-week lag time for estrogen. And if you do the math on that, it could be up to 7 weeks. So if you want your optimal, most reliable estrogen and estrogen value, you're going to have to get your blood work done at the 7-week mark into your testosterone cycle. So this is for like your first cycle, usually testosterone only, whatever your dosage is. 7 weeks in, it could take up to that. 6 to 7 weeks, you know, your estrogen is going to be constant and reliable. So with that said, your baseline bloods are going to be extremely valuable. Baseline meaning before you touched any kind of steroids or AAS. If you didn't get it before you started, the sooner the better. So after your first cycle, full PCT off of everything, back up to normal, better than the second cycle and better than the fourth cycle, so forth. Earlier the better. So if you have baseline bloods, keep in mind the reason it's so valuable is because let's say this goes for any value, let's just say your lipids are at like 40 when you're off cycle and you're like, damn, that shit's fucking low, man. But then like, let's say even before you touch anything, your HDL was at like 50. So it only dropped 10 points. It's not that big of a deal, but you have to have a reference because your body could just run low on something and then the steroids aren't even hurting it. It's just how your body runs. So baseline, everything is very, very important. So keep that in mind, but we'll get into like basically what the base of this video is about is how to get those two out of the way. So if you're a beginner or intermediate, and we're talking about, we're going to go over mid-cycle, which is probably the most important to get when you're cycling. So we'll start off with that because if you're not going to get anything else, it's good to get your like mid-cycle. Depending on your cycle length, let's say you're running a 16-week cycle, probably like week 9 or 10. If you're running a 12-week cycle, probably week 8, right around there. So that would be the options for your midweek or your mid-cycle. Always get your CBC tested, so your complete blood count. The reason is because that can kill you the quickest. It's the only thing out of all the other values that can actually like instantly kill you. It's very rare, but you know, you get heart attack, stroke, or just death because your hematocrit and hemoglobin got too high. So always get your complete blood count tested, and then donate blood. That's always going to help too. But yeah, get your complete blood count tested. It's the only thing that can kill you. Other values, they can recover and they won't kill you instantly. So, you don't want to die. Number 2 would be the metabolic panel. So that can be the complete metabolic panel or the basic. I'm just going to say the only difference between the two, complete and basic, is the complete has the kidneys added onto it, which is more important than your liver actually. So your kidneys, if they're damaged, they get fucked, and that could hurt your long-term career in any kind of physical sport you're doing, or bodybuilding, or if you're just doing it for fun, just can nuke your health. So always watch over your kidneys, very important. Liver can recover, but it's going to be secondary because you want to keep a value, an eye on your liver, and long-term it could damage. So just keep an eye on that. Complete metabolic panel is going to cover both of those. So that's going to be number 2. Lipids. Now, I have a star on this because if you know for sure that what your lipids are and you're very familiar with what it's going to be mid-cycle, it's going to be low no matter what. So if you have another specific issue that you're aware of and might be causing an issue like inflammation or something, you can knock that one out and replace it with something else that I have below it. So, but if you don't have a specific idea of an issue that's going on, just go lipids for the 3rd most important, and just keep in mind they're always going to be low mid-cycle. That's why you could swap it out. The 4th most important is going to be thyroid. Could be more up above the lipids, just kind of how it depends how you look at it. With the thyroid, I believe it's more accurate on cycle rather than getting it off your cycle, because when you're redlining, your body's basically redlining when you're on cycle. So you want to make sure your thyroid's keeping up with your body, and if it's not, it can hamper your muscle growth and a lot of metabolic downstream factors that can hurt you negatively. Basically, mostly for gains, not really for health. Health would be thyroid off cycle, gains thyroid on cycle. So that can actually affect your gains. So thyroid is going to be important on cycle. If you can only afford to do it one time, I would say just do it mid-cycle. Next ones are going to start kind of really petering down to be more very specific. C-reactive protein, I believe if you believe you have inflammation, you're using a new like carrier oil, or you have just some sort of inflammation, you can get that, but it's not going to be as crucial or important. Prolactin would be a very specific issue if you're running a drug that raises your prolactin and you're kind of confused if it's like an estrogen issue or not. You can always take a drug to lower the prolactin to figure it out. So that's why it's a little lower. And then the last one would be PSA, so your prostate antigen test. Probably going to be up on cycle. It would probably be better to have every once in a while get it, compare it, like maybe once on cycle, once off cycle, something like that, but not as important. Just going to keep an eye on it in the long term, kind of have a general trend of where that's going, but not very like short term issue. Next thing we're going to cover is your pre-cycle or like off-cycle. Mainly you're going to want to test, if it is your pre-cycle bloods, your complete blood count, it depends if it's an issue for you. If you know that your hematocrit and hemoglobin are going to get high, you could hit that, or maybe you're not donating blood a lot, you could run that. But if you know for sure it's not an issue, you can take that off still. It's the only thing that can kill you, so keep that in mind. If you need to save $20, I mean, I guess you can take that off. You can go with the second would be the comprehensive metabolic panel, just because we always want to watch over our kidneys no matter what. People that aren't on steroids can have damaged kidneys and livers from a lot of different things. So metabolic panel, you're always going to want to watch your organ damage, and that could kidneys would be the next thing that would be able to actually affect your health the quickest. So keep an eye on those. And then your lipids, I have a star next to these because they could bump up depending on what you're doing. If you didn't get your mid-cycle, or you don't have a lipid baseline to compare it to, lipids can be more like one of the most important, just because you're tracking long-term health. Let's say you haven't got a lipid panel in a while, you can bump that one up. LH and FSH, your fertility basically, it depends what you're doing. That could bump up to like number 3 or whatever. It just depends how important fertility is at that time for you, and to see if you're like completely shut down. So obviously this is going to be off cycle, pre-cycle, during cycle, you're not going to watch out for this. Prostate, this is a good time to probably do it. You can probably save some money and just throw that one in there for pre-cycle. and because you don't have to do too many things for the pre-cycle, and then maybe get it later on in a post-cycle or something. And the last one, I put thyroid. I think it's just more important to really cover your thyroid on cycle, because on cycle your body is not really like directly affected the thyroid. It's still going to be a downstream thing. So if your thyroid's functioning bad or good on cycle, it's probably going to be bad or good off cycle as well. So just keep that in mind. It's just going to be a little bit skewed, but that would be last on the list, and anything after that would just be completely extra. So I have kind of a plan to do a staggered budget. This is like super budget. Obviously, don't do this all the time. You want to get a full panel as much as you can, but if you want to spread out your money throughout the cycle and you still want to get bloods and be responsible, this would be the ultimate budget way to do it. So your pre-cycle, you're going to want to get your comprehensive metabolic panel, so kidney and liver tested, and then you're going to want to get your lipids tested. And then the complete blood count, again, if you're not donating blood, always get that one tested. You could kind of knock it off if you know you're going to get tested at the 8-week MidCycle CBC. So as long as you get MidCycle blood count, you can probably knock that one off as long as you know it's not an issue for you. And then MidCycle, what I would do is obviously blood count. You always have to do that MidCycle. And then your estradiol, so your estrogen test, depends on you. I have a star next to it because if you're 100% sure on how your estrogen's rolling, then just roll through with it and you're good. If you're not, you're kind of like trying to figure out where your estrogen is, it's good to get it tested for sure. And different compounds can affect your estrogen, so that's why I have a star next to it. It's like the same compounds you're always running, probably don't need to. First time you're adding in a 19-nor, you probably want to, because I've seen that affect your estrogen independent of your actual prolactin. So the last one would be the comprehensive metabolic panel, not last as in least important, but those would be the 3 gold standard or the 2 gold standard that you would actually have to do mid-cycle. And you can track that, and that's really all you need to do. And then post-cycle, lipids always, you can probably wait a couple weeks after post-cycle, but always track your lipids when you're off for sure. Whenever you get bloods off, you want to track your lipids. And then if you're not donating blood right after the cycle, you want to get your blood count done as well. So those would be the way I would stagger it on a like super budget. Not recommended, but it's better than nothing. So that's kind of the idea. This obviously isn't a blueprint. This is more just to kind of get you guys thinking, and you can decide for yourself. Some things might bump up or lower compared to genetic factors, individual factors, environmental factors, whatever the case is. But I just want you to realize that you don't have to get the full blood work, and it's better to get a couple things rather than nothing. So I just want to get you guys thinking and make sure you're staying safe. And obviously the gains are gonna fucking come through if you're healthy as well. So with that said, I appreciate you guys watching. If you got any questions for me, you can hit me up on Instagram. I don't really post too much, but I can't reply to things on YouTube. This platform is not made for it. So my Instagram is Dylan__Brett, and I'll post a picture or link or something in the description, and you guys can ask me anything on there if you want to, or just see what I looked like at the end of my cycle. So if y'all made it this far, thank you guys, and take care.